In this video, I'm going to talk about how to calculate a partial payment on a loan. So this problem says John Lewis borrowed $20,000 on a 200-day 8% note. After 50 days, John paid $5,000 on the note. On day 120, he paid an additional $6,000. Calculate the ending balance due. Now you have to note that the 8% is the annualized percentage rate. So if he were to hold the note for a whole year, his total interest will add up to 8% of the 20,000. Okay, so in this one we need to do simple interest, where I is equal to P RT, where P is your principal, R is your interest rate, and T is time in years. And we're dealing with days here, so our years would be partial years. It'd be days over 360. 360 being the whole year. So he wants to make a payment after 50 days on the loan. We need to figure out how much interest occurred during that time period. 50 days of interest on this loan. Okay, so if we're at 20,000, we multiply it by 8% or 0.08. We just take the 8% and divide by 100 to get 0.08. And then we need the time period. We're going to use 50 days over 360. And we use 360 because that's a nice round number instead of 365. All right, so we multiply those all together. We get 222 and 22 cents. That's how much interest occurred during those 50 days. Now our current balance is the 20,000 plus this interest. So we have a total of 20,222 and 22 cents. Now he paid 5,000 on that loan, so we're going to subtract 5,000 from that. And that's going to give us 15,222.22. So that's his current balance on the loan after 50 days and paying $5,000 on it. Okay, so he wants to pay an additional $6,000 on day 120. All right, so now we need to figure out how many days are between day 50 and day 120. So just 120 minus 50 gives you 70. Now sometimes they give you dates that they paid it on. If they use a date, you need to figure out how many days pass between one date and the other. In this problem, they already give us the amount of days, so it makes it easier. So again, we need to figure out the interest that accumulated during that time period. So our current balance, 15,222 and 22 cents times 0.08. Like we said, 120 minus 50 is 70 days, so 70 days pass by. So you get 70 divided by 360. All right, so that interest equals 236 and 79 cents. Okay, so our new balance is going to be 15,222 and 22 cents plus the 236.79. That's going to give us 15,459 and 1 cent. Then they paid 6,000, so we're going to subtract that. So the 15,459 and 1 cent minus the 6,000. It's going to give us 9,459 and 1 cent. All right, and then the ending is at the 200 days. So for the last payment at the 200-day mark, so we got 200 minus 120, that's going to be 80 days for that amount of time. Again, we need to figure out the interest that accumulated during that time. So our current balance is 9,459 and 1 cent times our interest rate times our time. That was 80 days over 360. And that comes out to 168 and 16 cents. We add it to our balance. That gives us 9,627 and 17 cents. So that would be the amount that's due at the end of the 200 days. All right, so to review, we're using simple interest where I equals PRT. T is the amount of time in years. If you get less than a year, you got to do a partial year. In this case, we're doing days, so it's going to be the days that passed over 360. So to calculate the amount of interest, you take your current balance times 0.08 times how many days that passed over 360. Then you're going to add that to your balance. Then you're going to subtract how much they paid. That's going to be your new balance. If they have another payment, do the same thing again. Figure out how much interest accumulated during the time period. Add that to your balance and subtract how much they paid. And then at the end, the last payment will be due on the last day of the note. If it's a 200-day note, if it's a 200-day note, then the last payment will be on the 200th day.